In a world of chaos, order emerges and the world collapses into two. The god Regulus, the god of order who created the great cosmos omnium, created the sun using the arc of the beginning. For many years after that, we watched the disappearance and birth of stars. Likewise, Igharam, the god of chaos who was watching the process, suddenly realizes that in a world where imperfections are order, the closest thing to chaos is the power of art that exists forever. And then he gradually began to covet that power. Birth and death have been repeated for a long time in a world where concepts of order and chaos existed. At the end, a star with special powers was born. ELGACIA, the condensed star of life. For the god Regulus, the god of order, the star was special. That's why we needed managers to take care of the stars. Created 7 gods to scatter the source of life in ELGACIA. At the time of ELGACIA's birth, the world of order, something changed in the world of chaos. Contrary to the will of the god of chaos, Petrenia was born, a star created by the dark creatures that divided themselves. ELGACIA and Petrenia, which symbolize order and chaos, began to change in opposite forms. Guillain, the god of harmony, created the sea in ELGACIA. Several continents were born, and tribes were born that fit their environment. The god Regulus shared Ark's power with the tribes to help them develop quickly. But the creatures that had power gradually degenerated into conceit. Seeing it, the god Regulus took Ark and divided it into 7 and distributed the power to the 7 gods. The 7 gods of ELGACIA began to create individual tribes using the power of Ark that they received. Posita, the god of honor, created Lazenis, who has wings and foresight. Septrum, the god of wisdom, created elves with great magical powers. Aldebaran, the god of life, created the spirit of ELGACIA. Antares, the god of fire, created the hell people with strong fighting power and resourcefulness. Sirius, the god of ice, created the Tyre, a species of ice. The god of harmony, Guillain, created the modern people and the positors who could live under the sea. The goddess Guillain and the god Sirius joined forces to create a human being, tribes of growth without any special ability. The most capable of many of these tribes, Lazenis, Hell, and Elves, were maintaining the balance of power in ELGACIA. The Hell, who longed for stronger power, tricked Antares, the god of fire, into handing over Ark. Later, Hell began to attack other tribes using the power of Ark. The Lazenis thought that they also needed the power of the Ark to counteract the Hell, and they secretly steal Ark of the Posita god. Against the Hell, the 2 tribes of Elves and Lazenis unite to start the war, and they succeed in stopping the Hell by opening up the power of Ark that Lazenis had stolen. But the god Regulus, who knows everything about this tribe's work, gets angry and punishes the tribes and the gods. For handing over Ark, Antares, the god of fire, was banished from the gods. Posita, whose Ark was stolen, was deprived of language, a means of communication. The Hell, the main culprit of war, is punished by extinction. Lazenis degenerated his wings and became unable to fly. But Lazenis, a tribe that resembled him, was special to the god Regulus. He created a continent floating in the sky under the heavenly system and made Lazenis live there. That's ELGACIA, the paradise of those who do not dream. And he selected Lazenis, who was born with the wisdom and wings that he originally had once a millennium, to give him the fate of looking to and observing ELGACIA's future in Triction, a gap in dimensions. Currently, this selected Lazenis is Beatrice of Triction. After this event, the god Regulus was reluctant to involve the gods in the history of ELGACIA. After such an incident, Ark seemed to be gradually forgotten, but the power of Ark, which was gradually amplified in the aftermath of the war, resonated with the world of chaos and caused a crack in the dimension. A gate was opened to connect the divided world of chaos and the world of order. Petrania's dark life, those who existed from the beginning in Igharam of chaos, did not miss this moment and invaded ELGACIA, a world of order. Petraeus creatures swept through ELGACIA as if they had waited, and among them chaos creatures called Flaming Legion attacked the Shusher and the Loan continent. In the burning land and the earth, Loan's tribes screamed and fled. They had no choice but to watch their hopes and futures burn in the flames that everything they achieved was burned and never extinguished. Petrania's Flaming Legion poured out of the castle of the Pope, which they consider sacred. And as soon as everything was about to be destroyed, a man who was called their king appeared. At his own sacrifice, he succeeded in sealing the Flaming Legion in the huge castle. And the power of Sirius descended on the continent, freezing the Flaming Legion with a blizzard. This great king is Kratviya, one of the ancestors of Tyre. The castle that resulted in the pouring of sealed Flaming Legion is Stargard, the home of Tyr's descendants and the place called the Holy Land. The first war begins, and as the creatures of order, the creatures of chaos, and the gods collide, something unusual happens in the universe. The rift between the two worlds is getting bigger and bigger, and the great cosmos Omnium begins to encroach on the chaos' star. God of Chaos, who witnessed the world gradually transforming into a form of nothing, empty that everything disappears, stops the war. To prevent this from happening, the gods of ELGACIA delivered all 7 arcs to the god Regulus, which opened up the power of the light arc from the beginning and used it to prevent cracks. Igharam also joined in using his power to close the cracks, and at this moment, the initial power combined with Igharam's chaos created a special presence in it. This being came to be called the Guardian, and the first Guardian Evergrace, who was born, succeeded in blocking the cracks in the universe by creating numerous guardians with his own power. Then the god of chaos went back to Petrania with the dark creatures, and this was the end of the first war. Back in the stars of chaos, Igharam realizes that Ark, the earliest light that he has long coveted and longed for, is impossible to bring into his world, and he sits in Petrania's power and spends his time in darkness and chaos. Coming into the sight of the god of chaos, unlike the bright sun that exists in the world of order, we only see the instinctive fighting and the ruleless evolution of Petrania's creatures, which are filled with darkness and chaos that seem to last forever. But at some point, in the deep abyss of Petrania, which was only confused, there is a presence of order. The name of that being is Kazaros. This being, who refers to himself as the Lord of the Abyss, begins to create the demons and bring chaos creatures to their knees by force. And he started spreading his own order to Petrania, the chaotic star. Igharam felt that the power of chaos was gradually dissipating, and he moved to the abyss space with those who existed from the beginning and used his power. But those who exist from the beginning betray Igharam and begin to stand on Kazaros' side against the god of chaos. Igharam was destroyed by the fierce attacks of Caesar and those who had existed since the beginning of the world. At that moment, 2 pieces escaped from Igharam's body, and one fell to the foot of the black mountain rock of Petrania and the other to the chaos of the beginning. Kazaros, who came to dominate the Chaos Star, prepared to wage a war to unite the world of order and the world of chaos, but did not know how to generate a dimensional crack to move to Omnium where ELGACIA existed. Chaotic creatures began to be wiped out by the demons of Kazaros, and Kazaros, along with those who existed from the beginning, began to create their own sun, copying the power of the sun that ELGACIA had, but escaped, and instead succeeded in creating a mass of darkness called the Red Moon. While Petrania is being dominated by the demons by such a powerful force, a prophet comes to Kazaros. He disappeared, leaving a prophecy that the dimension would warp when the red moon was gone. When Kazaros learned how to open up a crack in the dimension through the prophecy, he began to covet Ark's power even more. He founded the Legion, which would lead the demons of Petrania, and he appointed those who had exceptional abilities among the demons as Legion commander. First of all, Abrelshuld, a resourceful man with a powerful magic power, is the commander of the Phantom Legion. Akan, who has the power of plague, is the commander of the Plague Legion. Baltan, who was the strongest in the struggle between demons, was the commander of Demon Beast Legion. He appointed Ekanir, the Lord of Desire who seduced the demons to get what they wanted, as the commander of the Covetous Legion. Jealous of Abrelshuld and Kazaros, Ekanir used Vicus to try to drive a wedge between them. But her operation fails, and in turn, she is assassinated by Abrelshuld and Vicus. Eventually, Vicus takes over the new position in the commander of the Covetous Legion. And one day, a demon came to Kazaros and talked about why he had to use himself as the commander of Legion. Kazaros, who had been watching Petrania's absolute power, never gave in to Kazaros' persuade and tell jokes all day long. Gave him the position in the commander of the Mayhem Legion. The devil's name is Cackle Satan. While the power of Petrania's demons is taking root, Kazaros hears that a sword master with tremendous power is destroying everything and conquering the continent. He is the Darkness Sword Master the Min. Kazaros immediately appointed him commander of the Darkness Legion to take advantage of his power, and so the Darkness Legion, the elite legion of the few, was born. While the great history of the demise of the god of chaos and the emergence of demons is being written in Petrania, ELGACIA, the star of order, was prospering in abundance. But ELGACIA is also starting to have a conflict between the inevitable tribes. The conflict eventually led to war. And that's the Potenkool War, which is recorded as the most meaningless of the ELGACIA wars. Sacred, a holy empire created by the most advanced human tribes in ELGACIA to serve the god Regulus. The Archbishop of there, Thermer II, was curious about the power of Ark based on its past history. He sent Sacria's Knights of the Holy See to search all over the continent for clues, but eventually closed his eyes without finding any clues. His successor, Thermer III, inherited the will and began to search for information about Ark. We found that 6 continents had hidden Ark. Later, with the false cause of God's will, he ordered the leaders of each continent to hand over Ark to Sacria. They got Ark from the tribes of each continent. Thermer III was fascinated by the mysterious power and mystery of Ark. By all means, I began to search for the remaining Ark. They found Ark of Porpazi, a city deep in the sea. They even destroyed and killed Domemek to get Ark out of the giant Domemek's body. Many sacrificial knights were sacrificed to bring Ark to the top of the volcano Antares. When volcano Antares Ark disappeared, the contained volcano erupted and lava soared. Kurzan is no longer a land where living things can't live. And when Thermer III finds out that Ark is hidden in the city of Rohendo in Elves, he plans to trick their queen Azina and Inanna to win the Ark. Elves' twin sisters, Azina and Inanna, used to stop the explosion at the expense of their bodies to prevent Rohendo's monocore from collapsing and thus destroying it. Then, Rohendo's ancient flower made Inanna dwell in Azina's body, so that there were 2 personalities in one body. Blessed, he became immortal and ruled over Rohendo. Thermer III, who had heard the Elves' Queen's story, thought that they would not easily hand over Ark. used the body of the queen's friend, giant Domemek, who had previously destroyed the queen to deceive her. Thermer III sends royal messenger to Rohandel in the name of delivering Domemek to Azina, the queen of the giant's heart, who died near Sacaria. Azanoas handed the heart of a giant and allowed Sacaria's royal messenger to stay in Rohandel. On the night of the soul ritual in memory of the deceased Domemek, the priest of Dawn, hiding between the royal messengers of Sacaria, killed elves who knew their identity, infiltrate the garden, and steal Rohandel's ark. The queen, Azina, was angry with Sacaria when she noticed the situation. To make matters worse, it turns out that Domemek's death was the work of Archbishop Thermer III, so Azina declares war on Sacaria. The aftermath of this war spreads rapidly around the world. Giant, Mar and spears stood by Rohandel. Rathermis, Guillain, and Porpazi fought in support of Sacaria. Shishir also joined Sacaria on condition of receiving a flame that never goes out. The Sacaria allies, with all their might, immediately attacked Rohandel, and the Archbishop Thermer III commanded the advance, predicting victory. But the Archbishop immediately realized that he had overlooked it. Elves' Queen's magic was more than imaginable, and Rohandel's knights were incredibly powerful with a small number of people. Thermer III was greatly embarrassed, but he ordered the allies to continue fighting, believing that he had Ark, the power of God, and that he would win if he opened up this power. Just as the Archbishop was moving to open up Ark's power, the Guardian attack began with a roar in the castle of Lasamoa, the capital of Sacaria. Guardian Evergrace, who led them, killed Thermer III without any hesitation, took Ark and moved it to his nest. When the Guardians, who had only the purpose of protecting the stars, came to the heart of the war and attacked all the tribes indiscriminately, the leaders of all the tribes in turmoil had no choice but to end the war. Eventually, the Potenkool War, which is the most meaningless war in Arceus history, ends, and this is the cornerstone of the chain war that's going to be a huge threat to ELGACIA. After the Potenkool War, some reasoned Guardians began discussing how to judge the ELGACIA tribes under the leadership of Evergrace. Among them, a Guardian named Barkan argued that all tribes should be exterminated and wiped out, and that ELGACIA should be cleaned up again, but Guardian Luin said that the species should be given another chance. Evergrace, after much consideration, agrees with Guardian Luin's argument, and as soon as he tries to put all the Guardians back to sleep, he feels the death of a certain Guardian. The Guardian Behimos, who is under Barkan's orders and continues to attack humans, is killed by a Sword Master. The Sword Master is Khatun, the first Guardian Slayer. Upon hearing the news, Barkan attacked Khatun for revenge, and the duel between Guardian Slayer Khatun and Barkan lasted for 10 days. In the midst of the duel, a huge crack suddenly broke out in the sky. In the aftermath of the Potenkool War, there was a warp in the dimension. In the aftermath of the Potenkool War, there was a warp in the dimension, and this crack became the Chaos Gate that connected Petrania and ELGACIA, and from it began to pour out Kazaros and the Demon's Legion. All of ELGACIA's tribes were attacked by demons, helplessly slaughtered, and prayers and cries for help from the gods filled the continent, but no gods appeared. In desperate circumstances, the gods did not appear, but the Guardian appeared from heaven and began to fight the demons. And their fight began, and Kazaros and those who existed from the beginning created the Red Moon in ELGACIA. And using the flame of the ever stronger abyss, Kazaros and Domemek began attacking the Guardian Evergrace. Evergrace was forced to retreat for a while due to heavy injuries, and the balance between the demons and the Guardians, which was strengthened by the advent of the Red Moon, began to collapse. During the battle, The guardian Barkan and his followers were fascinated by the power of Khazros and decided to stand on the side of the demon legion, and when they betrayed Evergrace, things were sharply tilted. At the moment of desperation, just before the demons take over ELGACIA, a knight appears with his troops. His name is Luther. Shandy, Nineveh, Azinatsin, and Galachar, who appear together at the head of this article, join the war and start attacking the demons. These 7 heroes are later called Sidereals, the protectors of the stars. Catan and Damine started the battle with powerful forces, and Voltan and Galachar clashed. The Guardians and Nineveh joined forces to attack Vicus, and Shandy appeared in front of Cackle Satan, the commander of the Mayhem Legion, to demonstrate a welcome magic against him. Akan, the commander of the Plague Legion, started to suppress Sin, the founder of the Swery, by blocking him. Knight Luther blocked Khazros with Evergrace, but the sword of the loser was broken during the battle. And seeing the increasingly strong Khazros' power, Evergrace hurriedly orders the guardian of the mystic to bring Ark in the nest. The war continued and ELGACIA's power was far short of the pouring demons, so gradually the balance of power began to break down. During the battle, the main commander of the Darkness Legion made a huge spear of darkness and flew it to ELGACIA, the continent of Rajanet. At the moment of crisis, Luther opened up his real power to the sword of the loser, hurting Voltan badly, but not enough for the continuing demons' offensive. The mystic, who came back from Evergrace's nest with Ark, flies in and delivers all Ark to Luther. Luther opens up 7 Ark to distribute the power of the original light Ark to the Sidereals. Under Ark's power, the Sidereals began to push the demons and create columns like giant spears of God to seal Khazros. When the spear of this god is stuck on the ground, a huge chain is created that destroys all the demons and succeeds in sealing Khazros' body. Then Petrania and ELGACIA's Chaos Gate gradually began to close, and Khazros separated the souls and led the demon core along with those who existed from the beginning, retreating to Petrania. Later, Sidereals trapped the body of the sealed Khazros on Mount Antares in Kurzan, where no one could access. And when all the Chaos Gates were closed, the red moon created by Chaos beings read the light and began to be destroyed. The 7 Ak lost their light again and fell to the ground. And Luther offered to give Ark to Sidereals and hide it all over the world. The 7 Ak lost their light again and fell to the ground. And Luther offered to give Ark to Sidereals and hide it all over the world. So the Chain War, the first invasion of the great devil Khazros, ended. After the war, the Guardians went back to sleep and the guardian Barkan and his followers moved with the demons to Petrania, the Chaos Star, and Guardian Luin stayed with the humans, saying he would not sleep but watch the Ttribes. While the war-torn Guardian Luin was resting in his sanctuary, Sidereals came to him and asked if their species could live on the land. Seeing Sion's battle in the War of the Chains, the Guardian Luin knew his strength and righteousness, and allowed him to live on his land on the condition that only those who were recognized by Sidereals could enter the sanctuary. Around the sanctuary of Guardian Luin, Sin and the humans who followed him settled on a rich continent with cherry blossoms in full bloom, and it was called Enica, Garden of Taste for the Arts. The Chain War also contributed to the birth of another tribes in ELGACIA. It was rumored that humans exposed to the fragments of the Red Moon created by Khazros and Chaos from the beginning became a mixture of human and devil power called Darren, and the ELGACIA tribes, who suffered from demon attacks, began to suppress them. Sacria's forces slaughtered Darrens because of God's will, and some of the Darrens who were driven from their hometowns and fled to Kurzan, where Khazros was sealed. while others headed to Phaeton, a land cursed by Daemon's window of darkness. And then they were forming groups and gradually becoming proficient in dealing with the forces of the devil and pledging revenge on Sacria, who suppressed them, and Kazaros, who was the main culprit of this. Meanwhile, during the War of the Chains, the local Geneo and Elves was falling apart due to Abrelshuld's ruse. Elves, who was manipulated by the phantom of Abrelshuld, set off a powerful magical explosion, and in the aftermath, Geneo was completely ruined. Azino, who had considered that Elves, who was involved in the incident, would be ostracized after the war, would expel Elves, who had collapsed Geneo, to another continent. They named the migrating continent Fern, and Elin, the leader of Geneo, took control of Fern. So the Elves of ELGACIA were divided into two branches, and unlike the closed, conservative Elves of Rohendel, the Elves of Fern, who worked on trade and opening up, became the center of the world. After the Chain War, there was a big change in power in Sacria, the Holy Empire. The newly inaugurated Archbishop Ttribes excommunicates the Thermer family, which was the cause of the Potenkool War, from Sacria, and also dismantles the Holy Order, which sought Ark. Under Sacria, scholars at the Ivory Tower who had been studying medicine and science for many years came to be expelled by defining it as heresy. Expelled scholars wander the continent and find land to complete their research. They find red deserts, barren lands, but arid lands that have enormous resources in them. And they call them the Arthetine and begin to remodel their bodies to survive on this extreme land. They transform their bodies, and increasingly assimilated with machines, have blue blood, not red blood. And then they called themselves Sicken and built the big city of Stern, continuing their constant research into the evolution of the tribes. These fragments appeared in the form of minerals on each continent, and the species called them Arxium, which greatly contributed to the development of technology. The Red Moon destroyed debris created by chaos beings became chaos fragments and scattered throughout Arxia. The journey of the Night Looter came to an end after the War of the Chains. He returned to his country, became king, signed a treaty of friendship with neighboring Artemis federal states, allied with Fern, Rohendel, Yorn, and Artetan, and began trading on the continent, bringing the nation Looter into glory. But after a long time, King Looter closed his eyes at the end of his life. And later Looter was shaken little by the nobles and the Duke of Shuheret. Shuheret had poisoned the king to take the position of regent and was plotting a plan to imprison and assassinate Theron. 500 years have passed since the end of the Chain War, and Sacria, who worships the god of order, regained authority. And beautiful music resonated in Fleche, which became the sacred place of the art of the tribe. In Pupunica, a nation of women, great festivals continued, and the Arxia tribes was flourishing, with Yorn, a nation of Omar, using Arxium to make a huge fortune. But Mount Antares and Kurzan gradually began to rise again, and the chains that sealed Kazaros' body were gradually loosening. Recognizing the weakening of the seal, Kazaros resonated with Petrania's own soul, and began to generate a little bit of chaos gate again. Something was about to happen again in the peaceful Arxia, and Beatrice of Triction greets an adventurer. Explaining to the adventurer about the threat of power of chaos, he led him to the Ark. And once again, when the adventurer left the Triction in the dimension, a pillar of light was created in Arxia.
빛의 기둥이 올랐으니 서둘러야겠구나.
어? 대체 어디로 가는 건데?
옛 친구들을 만나러 갈 거다. 그리고 500년 만에 뜬 운명의 별을 맞이할 준비를
어디로 가는
하자꾸나.
거냐고? 같이 가, 영감. 같이 가.
and your adventure began.
어이, 도착했으니 다들 일어나. 이곳이 바로 잊혀진 땅 트루아다.